But today, for part 3 of our series in the book of Ruth, we come to chapter 2. And in this great story of Ruth and Naomi. And up to now, I think you'll agree that the focus of this story has primarily been on Naomi. It was she who suffered the worst of the calamities, and it is to Naomi's hometown that we have come, and Naomi is the one who has done most of the speaking up till now. But starting in chapter 2, we are going to see kind of the focus of the story shift a bit, away from primarily and almost exclusively being on Naomi and toward Ruth. And which makes sense because the book is called Ruth. It would be a shame to name the book Ruth and then make it all about Naomi. But we're going to see Ruth is going to start featuring more strongly in the story starting now. And so what has happened is they have arrived in Bethlehem. They have moved into Bethlehem. I'm going to imagine that maybe some meaningful period of time has, but not a long period of time, has gone by since they arrived at the gates of Bethlehem. And now Ruth and Naomi are together in the city, or in the town, I should say, and they are setting about the business of living. You know, they've left Moab, they've arrived in Bethlehem, and so now what? Well, we are in the now what. They are beginning they're trying to figure out how they're going to live. And of course, according to Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, one of the greatest, most chief needs that we have is the need for food, right? Well, so they need food, and lo and behold, Ruth has a brainwave for how to get some. And so this is where we pick up the story. I'm going to read out loud Ruth chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. And you're welcome, of course, to follow along in your own Bibles if you would like to. And when I'm finished, I'll say, "This is the word of the Lord." And at that point, I invite you, if you would like, to respond in faith by saying, "Thanks be to God." But listen carefully. We are reading the word of the Lord together. In Ruth chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. Now Naomi had a kinsman on her husband's side, a prominent rich man of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain, behind someone in whose sight I may find favor." She said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she went, and came and gleaned in the field behind the reapers. As it happened, she came to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Just then Boaz came from Bethlehem. He said to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they answered, "The Lord bless you." Then Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, "To whom does this young woman belong?" The servant who was in charge of the reaper answered, "She is the Moabite who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said, 'Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the reapers.' So she came, and she has been on her feet from early this morning until now, without resting even for a moment." Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter, do not go and glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Keep your eyes on the field that is being reaped, and follow behind them. I have ordered the young men not to bother you. If you get thirsty, go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn." Then she fell prostrate with her face to the ground, and she said to him, Why have I found favor in your sight, that you should take notice of me when I am a foreigner?" But Boaz answered her, all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people you did not know before. May the Lord reward you for your deeds, and may you find a full reward from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have taken refuge. Then she said, "May I continue to find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servants, even though I am not one of your servants." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The grass withers and the flower fades, but what we have read together will endure forever. Well, this is a wonderful story. We could say that this is even the beginning of a new act in this story, and in many ways it's a turning point in the lives of Ruth and Naomi. But in order to understand the full specialness of what is happening in this portion of our text, we need to understand a little bit about ancient world agricultural practices and kind of some of the ancient Near Eastern cultural norms or cultural traditions that surround the harvest time and that surround the production of farmed produce. And especially we need to understand this ancient tradition of gleaning. Just a little aside, when I first saw the word gleaning as a kid, I thought, oh wow, there's a typo here in the text. Cleaning starts with a C, not with a G. And that facilitated a conversation wherein I learned what gleaning is. And I'll share it with you. Gleaning is a tradition that is ubiquitous in the ancient Near East. And in fact, in many ways, the practice of gleaning is still a part of Middle Eastern culture, even in this day and age. It sprung up a little bit from time to time in early American history as well, because America, in the early days of America, we thought of ourselves as kind of a shining city on a hill kind of thing. We were trying to set a model for the rest of the world about how good people live. Not so much so anymore. But as part of that whole developmental process in our culture, gleaning was a part of it. Gleaning also shows up, makes an appearance in the New Testament as well. And what the practice of gleaning is it's a hallowed and it's a special practice that is specifically named in the law of Moses. It exists outside of Israelite life, but it is specially protected under the law of Moses for the people of God as a way of, as a help to those who are poor. What gleaning is sojourners on the road, travelers on the road, when they come to an orchard or when they come to a field like what we're seeing harvested in this story, a wheat field or a barley field, whatever that person can reach with their hand without trespassing on the person's property. If from the road you can reach and you can grab low-hanging fruit, or if you can reach and you can grab grain off of the stalks that are growing near the road, then you are allowed to keep that and use that for your own personal use. It is deeply frowned upon for you to turn around and monetize that, to sell it. That would be considered theft. But if you take what you have gleaned from the edges of the field home and you feed yourself and your family with it, that is protected, that is sacred under the law of Moses. In the same way, at harvest time, especially in grain fields, gleaners are allowed to follow behind the official employed harvesters and avail themselves of whatever gets dropped or whatever gets missed. Remember, this is a day and age long before mechanized harvesters. And so the way harvesting goes is the people would come and you'd grab a handful of stalks, you would cut them off at the bottom, and you'd gather these stalks into bundles, and the stalks would then be taken to a central location, usually called the threshing floor, and gathered there, where then the grain would be separated from the rest of the plant. Well, inevitably in this process, usable grain either falls out of the stalk, out of the bundle, or people miss one. It's impossible to bat 1,000 when you're manually cutting wheat stalks or barley stalks, and so there would always be some trace amounts left over. And so gleaning was the practice of somebody coming and following behind those who are harvesting and availing themselves of the missed and the dropped grain. Of course, people are people, and people get greedy, and so profit-minded landowners and farmers would sometimes harass gleaners and try to run them off of the fields, even though the gleaners are not breaking the law technically. People would still try to run them off or harass them to try and stop them from taking what the landowner viewed as legally theirs. So this is the context in which all this happens. And so this is precisely where we see an immense kindness of Boaz. It would be fully conventional at the time for him to abuse and harass and run people like Ruth off of his land. It's his grain, it's his livelihood that this grain is sustaining. But instead, Boaz is kind. And not only is he is kind to Ruth in a godly way. And indeed, since we already know that God most often prefers to use ordinary, normal human beings like you and me as the instruments by whom and through whom God works his miracles in the world, it would be safe to guess that what we see happening in the kindness of Boaz is God's own kindness toward Ruth and Naomi. God's protection and kindness toward Ruth and Naomi is being acted out visibly and tangibly through the kindness of Boaz. And Boaz's kindness, whether he perceives it or not, is kingdom kindness. His kindness is missional kindness. And it's crucial that we understand this visible kind of kindness. Last week we talked about the kindness that kind of forms the foundation on which all of our lives are built, and that is the kindness that we experience or that is bestowed upon us or upon others when we cannot see it. Right? None of us were around to watch Jesus die on the cross for our sins, but he did it anyway. And God's provision for us often comes in ways that we cannot see. But there's a whole nother kind of kindness, a missional and outward-focused kindness, a kingdom kindness that is visible, that we can see. And it's crucial for us to understand the value of this kindness, and it is important for us to understand this kindness thoroughly in order to live into our calling as the family members of Jesus and as his disciples. And so I have, toward that end, I have two reflections on this kind of visible kingdom kindness that I'd like to share with us today that I think might be of value for us who live in this time and in this place. My first reflection is that the kindness that Boaz shows to Ruth affirms and even elevates Ruth's personal dignity. Remember, all human beings are created in the image of God. God said, let us create humankind, not certain portions of humankind. Let us create humankind according to our image and according to our likeness. That means that every single one of us holds some amount of God's divine image. And therefore, we are worthy, every single one of us. This is why we teach our children that we respect everyone, that we love everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done, no matter where they come from. And so Boaz's kindness affirms and even elevates this core dignity of Ruth. And that's the important thing. Kingdom kindness is focused both on the immediate material need of the one receiving the kindness, or on the immediate need of the one to whom we are being kind. And kingdom kindness is focused at the exact same time on upholding their God-given dignity. We see this in the way that Boaz encourages Ruth to continue gleaning rather than just giving her a handout and patting her on the head and saying, be on your way. Doing it that second way would have elevated Boaz's already lofty status relative to Ruth, and it would have demeaned her. It would have been a way through kind of a backhanded kindness of highlighting to the world just how far Ruth has fallen. But that's not how Boaz behaves. Yes, Boaz is being generous with what is lawfully his. but he preserves for her and protects for her the right and the invitation to continue gleaning, because he understands that the value of work is profound. He understands that the dignity derived from an honest day's work is immense. That seeing in real time the reality that, yes, you may be down and out, but you still have something to bring to the table. That is powerful. When I lived in Seattle, I interacted a lot with, at church, a lot with homeless people living on the street down the hill from where our church was located. And I could tell every single time when they finally reached a point where they were so desperate that they started panhandling or begging for money, the erosion of their self-esteem, the erosion of the way that they thought of themselves took them, just was extreme. On the other hand, when someone said yes to a job, when someone said yes to an opportunity, to feel like at some level they had participated helpfully in return for what they were receiving, it lifted them up so much. They had a new spring to their step. They usually straightened up a little tall. They walked a little taller. Boaz preserves for Ruth. Boaz gives Ruth the honor of preserving her dignity through an honest return for honest work. In fact, Boaz's kindness to Ruth, frankly, is twofold. By his kindness, Ruth receives not only what she and Naomi need in the here and now materially for their survival, but also by encouraging her to glean, Boaz shows everyone else. This is all done in full view. This is all done out loud in public. Boaz shows everyone else that Ruth is worthy of respect. That Ruth is someone who has dignity, and that her dignity is something that needs to be remembered and upheld. In an honor and shame culture like the Middle East, that is of crucial importance. But even here in the United States, where we're not as big into honor and shame as they are there, it is still important that we remember that we respect one another. And that our kindness needs to be the sort of kindness that shows respect and encourages respect and empowers respect from all the onlookers. And Boaz even goes further down this path by revealing to Ruth that he knows her story. He tells her that he understands her whole story, that he has been told her story, that he knows what she has done for Naomi and for the love of Naomi, and he applauds it, he celebrates it, he honors it. And indeed, he even goes further than that. He calls down divine blessings upon her for that. Friends, kingdom kindness is always concerned with the whole person involved. Yes, we address the obvious need that is before us. But our kindness also, when it is kingdom kindness, seeks to lift up that person to a place where they can see and they can understand and they can begin to re-believe in their core human value as someone made by God on purpose. My second reflection on kindness is this. When we are kind to another person, and we are kind to them in a manner that affirms the fullness of their God-given dignity, the reverberations of that stretch on beyond the horizon. The impact of that is greater than anything we could possibly measure. And such kindness creates the opportunity and has the power to set someone's life on a whole new pathway. It turns people's lives around. A perfect example of this that we see in literature, of course, is in the story of Jean Valjean in Les Miserables. If you've ever watched the movie, if you've ever seen the musical, or if you've read the book, I've read the book. That's a big thing reading that book. So if you have, respect to you. But if you are familiar with the story of Les Mis, you'll know about Jean Valjean, about how he has escaped from prison and he is living at a level barely above the animals around him. That by the time he meets Father Benvenu, this retired priest, he is a broken, angry, darkness-filled man who is prone to violence, prone to theft, prone to anything that he believes is necessary for him to survive in a dog-eat-dog, kill-or-be-killed world. And so, of course, when he sees Father Benvenu's silver flatware, he contrives to assault Father Benvenu and rob him of this silver. And what does Father Benvenu do? He refuses to report the theft. He refuses to let Jean Valjean be arrested. And instead, he says to him probably some of the most beautiful lines written in prose ever anywhere in the world. He says, "Jean Valjean, my brother, with this silver I have bought your soul. I bought your soul away from darkness and evil, and now I give it back to God." And of course, then the whole rest of the story is Valjean's life radically changing pathways away from that way of life and into a way of life marked by increasingly large and profound expressions of love and generosity, even at extreme personal risk. So that's what we have in literature. Of course, in our story today, we see in this kindness of Boaz toward Ruth, I think at this moment, this is when Boaz wins her heart. And so the theme of this story changes from survival into Ruth and Boaz working together to find a way for Ruth and Naomi working together to try and find a way for Ruth and Boaz to become a family. And so this matters to us all. You know, if you're single, if you're a single person and you're looking for your special someone, if you're looking for the one with whom you want to build your life, or if you're hoping that someone finds you and wants you to be someone with whom they build their life, just remember, a kind person is just that kind of is just that sort. A person who is kind is the person you can build your life with. Yes, it's wonderful to have a sense of humor. Yes, it's wonderful to have usable skills and capabilities and be a good provider. Yes, it's good to be smart, to be clever. But without kindness, all of that can turn into darkness so quickly. It's like the Apostle Paul says, "I can speak with the tongues of angels, but if I do and I have not love, then all I'm doing is making noise." When you are a kind person, when the first adjective that people think of when they think about you is some variation of kindness, I guarantee you will catch someone's eye. So be kind and demand kindness in return. Not all of us are single and looking to get married, though. Some of us already are married. I would say that this visible, tangible kingdom kindness is a useful and a powerful way to keep a marriage healthy and keep a marriage strong over the long haul. They're just simply episodes in anyone's relationship where it's difficult to rub along with the other. You wake up in the morning, you roll over in bed, and you say, "Who are you and what have you done with the person I married?" Well, might I suppose on your behalf that special, tangible, feelable, seeable kingdom kindness might be a way to break the logjam. A special act of kindness, maybe even one by surprise, might be a way to start melting the ice that is forming between the two of you. Not all of us are single looking to be married. Not all of us are married. Some of us have a life of singleness. Some of us are just called by God to be single. Others of us are forced into singleness by circumstance. But even for us, kindness is a big deal because kindness makes friends. Kind people have friends. I can't tell you how many people I've said, why do you stay in this job that's frankly not that fulfilling for you and the pay's lousy, or not the pay's not lousy, but you could get much better pay somewhere else. You could be on the cutting edge of things. And their response was, I could, but the people here in this office are nice to me. I mean, I eat regularly at a particular place just down the street, and somebody wondered, why do you keep coming to this place instead of going up to the other side of town to another place? I said, well, why would I go all the way across town to be treated rudely? And for it to be abundantly clear that nobody wants me there, when I can walk here and everybody's glad to see me and everybody's nice. Just like kindness is attractive to other people when eros is part of the mix, kindness is equally attractive to people when when eros is nowhere in the mix. Kind people have friends. And kind people have the kind of friends that come to your aid when you need it. But of course, part of being kind is coming to their aid when they need it. The simple bottom line, friends, is that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your walk of life, kingdom kindness, this visible, tangible kingdom kindness, builds up the neighborhood. The literal neighborhood and the neighborhood under your roof. Both at the same time. Visible, tangible kingdom kindness builds up the neighborhood, and visible, tangible kingdom kindness brings good things, because when a people are kind, when kindness is the norm, that is the place where the grace of God puts down roots. That is the place where the grace of God grows and flourishes. It is in our kindness, our active, tangible kindness, where the grace of God waxes strongly. God's grace waxes in strength when it is surrounded by tangibly kind people. Amen? Amen.